um, asking a question. It's going to be a multiple choice question. And the question is going to be this. You'll have three responses to the question. The question will be, uh, to what degree has your anxiety changed about this over the past week?
Meaning COVID-19.
Yeah, the COVID-19. Either you are more anxious than you were a week ago, which would be just fine, or you're less anxious than you were a week ago, and there might be some good reasons for that, or you have about the same anxiety level that you had a week ago. So let me ask that question, and you can raise your hands. Kate, can you tell them how to raise their hands? I think they go over.
Okay. All right.
You go over your own photo, right?
Well, you know what? I forget how to raise a hand. Does anybody know?
Okay. Well, let's just.
They're doing it in the chat. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Diane was waving. I think that's a good way to do it.
Okay.
So here comes the question then. How many of you are feeling more anxious than a week ago? Wave at us.
I can't see everybody though.
Okay. I can see quite a few. Let's see. I can't see everybody either.
There,
okay, some of you, very good. How many of you are feeling less anxious than a week ago? Wave at us. Okay. A few of those. How many are feeling about the same in anxiety level as about a week ago? Okay, well, we've got people in all the groups.
Yeah, so, the balanced people, the people that are the same. Okay.
Yes. Well, hopefully this will support all of us, no matter which of those groups that we're in.
Right.
Because this is a call about strengthening our resilience to the unknown. And if there's anything that we know about this virus, that's that things are changing every day, and we just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or even this afternoon or whatever. So having that resilience is important. For those of you who were here last week, I just want to check in. We talked about being present as a way of coping, being present to the now. How many of you, how have you been practicing that, and how has it been working for you? Anybody from last week care to comment about it? You can just jump in if you want.
I will get the ball rolling here since we have hesitation there. And something that I'm usually pretty good at practicing being present quite a bit. And there are several times that because I noticed I was certainly eating more in being cooped up. I was like, oh, that's how I would entertain myself. Yes, I see Diane. Yeah. And I thought, all right, I gotta nick this in the bud here. So I was practicing really being present when I eat. And the other day I was eating some grapes, and I put one grape in my mouth and really tasted it. It was delicious and juicy and wonderful. And so, that was, that's been something that I've added to my usual being present. And, for those of you that weren't with us last week, we were talking about the presence being so important because that's where we have joy of life. That's where we have peace in our lives, when we're truly present and not distracted into the future or, going into the past. So with that said, even if you weren't on the call last week, is there anything anybody would like to share about what they have noticed in the
This Paula.
Go ahead, Paula.
Well, I just, try to notice my dogs because they are very relaxed during this whole thing, and they just lay around on the porch in the sun, and I said, I need to do a little bit more of that because I've been just too busy. So trying to get out of the busy to, really sit and take a breath, and breathe through this.
Yeah.
And being more connected to family has been a real positive from this,
Yeah.
Rarely a day goes by I don't get a call from either one of my kids, so.
Nice. Yeah.
Sure.
Which is something good.
To a couple of things there, Paula, that I like. One is we can be busy with activity, with behaviors, and we can also just be busy in our minds, right, and have our minds running like a hamster on a wheel, and siphoning off or going away from that busyness is what you're talking about. Helps you be present and helps you calm down from all the emotion that is generated by the busyness.
Yeah, and to repeat something we talked about last week is just simply when you notice yourself on that hamster wheel of thought, just simply pause and take a deep breath. Take 3 deep breaths or more. And that immediately brings you into the present moment. You can feel much different than when you're like, what's next, and constantly on that trail, which
Sure.
can be, the hamster wheel can be really speeded up right now for a lot of people.
Diane, I was wondering if you were raising your hand there. Were you? Did you want to say something? Or were you just waving? Okay. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Phil, I see your wave too. Are you wanting to say anything, or are you just waving to us?
No, I'll just share.
Okay.
I own a business, and there's a lot going on. It's impossible to not think about the virus. It'll automatically come if you're not determined to maintain that in the moment way. Your mind, my mind anyway, just floods. But I do find when I'm doing a task, no matter how routine it is or how mundane, in fact, those are even better. If I just focus on that one thing, then everything goes quiet. And I can feel the stress on my body just going away. I mean, my body relaxes instantly. And it's a discipline that I'm finding a greater need to maintain right now because there is a lot of stress and a lot going on.
Right.
But being in the moment is as good a prescription as it's always been.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I love your description and how, what I love about what you're saying is how quickly you can feel a difference. It's not like you have to do it for 3 days before you notice it. You can instantly feel better when you just pause and take a breath and realize, because we're in charge of our thoughts. We're the thinkers. So bravo. I love that.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to move ahead here and ask another question, and that has to do with how we're currently processing what's going on, basically, and so related to the current situation. Are there thoughts or situations that are bothering you in particular that maybe we could share together? And what I'll do is I'll try and keep track of your comments on a whiteboard here. If I can do this. So the question is, what are your concerns?
Yeah, so it could be situations, whatever. Yeah. Anybody? We'd love to hear from you.
Sure. You may have to unmute yourself for us. See if I can get this so everybody.
And when we say there is no wrong, that also includes spelling.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Oh yeah, there's a couple.
That's all right. That's all right.
Okay.
All right, so let's just give a couple of examples that I think are probably common. Would be that our schedules, our future schedules. That's something David and I are dealing with now. We've had quite a few things that we have had to postpone, and we don't know when that's going to happen again. When we'll be able to get them back on the schedule.
Yes, and what kind of emotion might that stimulate then, Kate?
Well,
the uncertainty of the schedules.
Right. Well, there's some anxiety about can we meet all of our, the emotion is anxiety basically about like can we meet our, what's expected of us, and how,
Yes.
So there's a lot of concern about that.
Yes, fulfilling our responsibilities to people.
Right.
How is that going to happen? Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay, great. How about somebody else? A concern that you might have at the moment?
Dave, I just put mine up on a chat.
Okay. Which was what? I haven't seen it.
Go ahead and say it.
Oh, okay. I find myself getting upset when I see others not abiding by the rules. We and many others are making great sacrifices to fight the virus. And yet some parade around or group up like they don't have a care in the world. Just before this meeting, I took a quick look at, because I haven't been out of the house, but I wanted to see what was going on around town. So I started looking at the webcams. And here we have the beach, the Florida beach. And, we're prohibited from going on the beach. It's supposed to be closed. But there's 20, 30 people out there walking around. Now, they're not grouping up. They're maintaining their space. And that's almost nobody compared to what it usually is like out there.
Right.
But I want to be on the beach.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so the some of the emotions that are in that, what would you say?
Anger.
Mm-hmm.
I just get pissed.
Yeah, pissedness.
Right.
Yeah, and something that I was thinking too, which I would be feeling if I was in an area and seeing that, would be resentment.
Well, that works too. I mean, we closed our business, and we don't even know if we're going to open again probably not for 2 months the way it's looking right now.
Sure.
And our neighbors in the strip mall are already giving up. Some of them. I mean, we're going to have vacancies. There's bankruptcies happening. It's tough, and a lot of people are out of work. It's going to get worse. We haven't been hit hard here in Florida yet, but it's coming.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen. And these people are on the beach, and and even more so in my retirement community where I live. They closed all the clubhouses and everything, but they're grouping up together in their backyards with their lawn chairs and their picnics and their liquor-laden picnic tables and their unhealthy food, and they're carrying on like they always do. And it troubles me because again, a lot of people are making some major sacrifices to try to make a difference, and these people are undoing that very thing.
Sure. Yeah. The lack of social responsibility. So there's also fear here, significantly. I mean, there's a lot at stake in what you're describing, as well as other areas, and any other emotional. And if anybody else, please chime in about other emotions they may be experiencing about these things or other issues.
This
Several
call again.
people have put things on the message board chat.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, we'll look here. That could. All right. So from Dawn, bothers me about the church is still encouraging people to congregate. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, that's. Yeah. And Paula, concern over relationship with spouse as time elapses. Yeah. Because of the stress of the situation. Okay.
Thank you for reading those, because I can't see that and this
Yeah.
chart at the same
Yes,
time.
okay. All right.
So the church encouraging people to still gather.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's similar to what Phil was saying, isn't it? And was that from Dawn?
Yes, that was from Dawn.
Dawn, is there an emotion attached to that for you?
All the same, anger, frustration.
Oh yeah, frustration.
Whoops. Okay, and there was another one, Kate, that you were picking off.
Yeah, Paula was saying concern over her relationship with her spouse
Oh, sure.
as time elapses.
Right, or a significant other, or whoever, any loved ones, right? Maybe I'll put it that way. Yeah.
Very similar to Catherine's comment.
And what did Catherine?
I'm just seeing that now. I'm concerned the virus would harm someone I love.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And So what emotion, we can kind of do this as a group, what emotion might that stimulate for us all? I mean, we probably can relate to this, right? We care about our loved ones. We're concerned that they might be affected or in some way, or certainly affected, if not infected.
I think that's fear for me, Dave.
Okay.
Fear and worry would be coming into that. And there's also a helplessness, I think.
Mm. Yeah, being out of control like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is all going on around us, and we can't control it. We can't control the other people. We can't control the government. We can't control the speed of a virus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Okay, anything else that people either want to say about this or that's in the chat room that I can't see right now?
Well,
I have one.
something.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Is it me?
Yeah.
Or
go
was
ahead.
someone else trying to talk? Okay. My current issue is the constant adapting. It seems like as a worship leader, we just get the hang of live streaming or radio broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we're looking at, oh my gosh, this might go into summer.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have outdoor services at that point. So then all these learning curves,
Right.
we're learning them
Yeah.
and you accomplish it, but how many more learning curves are out there?
Yeah.
And for my husband, he's a teacher at a high school. So just since the last governor's speech, as of yesterday, now we've just kind of gotten onto this long distance learning, e-learning, and he's checking in with students and getting all of that. It's just taken enormous amounts of hours.
Uh-huh.
And now yesterday we started to feel like the other shoe might drop. He might never ever see those seniors again because we may not go back to school. Okay, so then there's that adaptation. It just kind of it's just a constant adaptation with the newness of things as things develop.
Yeah.
And can you identify an emotion associated with that at all, Dawn?
Diane.
Diane.
Oh, it's Diane. Okay.
It's Diane.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Dave.
Yes. So, okay. So what emotion would be attached to that for you, if you can identify it?
How about overwhelm?
Oh.
Yeah.
I was also hearing maybe some sadness in there, like, gosh, we might not be able to see people
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
for a while, and some people might get,
Right.
Yeah, even a grief. I mean, there's I think there's
Yes.
real grieving going on with so many things that can't be carried out, like graduations, and today's my sister's birthday, and I'm not going to see her. I mean, little things and big things, funerals, weddings,
Yes.
all of that. So there's a real grief that can be present.
I think I don't know if this is an emotion, but there's just a certain amount of wondering. There's just wonder, like how long can I be a worship leader when there's no people I'm looking at?
Yeah.
The congregation has disappeared. They're on the other side of their radios in their living rooms. And it just, I don't know, it's
Yeah.
hard to know.
Yeah, you're speaking for a lot of people, for sure. So that's why we're doing this, right? Because
Right.
we will get through this. And that's why the topic of this call is resilience. And sometimes we forget how resilient we are. And so we wanted to look at that resilience. And so I wanted to share a personal story of mine, because we want you to be thinking about when you have been resilient in your life. When you have maybe you haven't faced anything at this level or in the way that it's affecting you. But there have been challenges in all of our lives. and we're still here. We're all here now. And that means we've gotten through them. And so we really want to highlight that whatever it is that got us through those. And so we want you to be thinking about a time where that was really challenging and tough, that you might have been thinking, oh, I could never do this. I'll never get through this. And you did. So I'm going to share one just to kind of get the ball rolling. And last year at this time, I was in cancer treatment for breast cancer. And I had a pretty miserable 6 months. Very little time that I felt good in that 6 months. You know, very short couple of days in between chemo treatments, and that was challenging. I wasn't in fear at the time. I wasn't afraid of dying, and there were times that I felt really helpless, like I couldn't change it. There was nothing I could take care of myself, but there was nothing I could do to change the side effects of chemo. There was nothing else I could do to make up for the work I was missing. I was pretty helpless, and even though I had hope, you know, I knew I was going to get well, or I believed I would. In those times, that was really bringing me down, and so. You know, what I had to look at is, and I kind of coached myself through that, is, all right, what do I know is true about myself? What can I get a hold of here? And one thing is that I was not going to give my joy away to cancer. And so what helped me through that was determination. Like when I would feel myself going down the tubes, wait a minute, no, I'm not giving my joy away to cancer, you know. And I would do what I would need to do to get present and focus and, you know, gratitude or whatever to help me get back aligned. And I also, what helped me there was acceptance, accepting what I could not change. And there's a peace that comes with acceptance. And so, you know, I really, when this whole crisis hit, I recognized that, like, oh, this kind of feels like a replay for me. I mean, you know, minus the nausea, you know, that, you know, it's like, all right, it was the same emotional kind of hit. Like, wait a minute, my life is turned upside down here and I have no control over it. And so again, it was like, I'm not giving the coronavirus my joy. And that determination was there. And again, the acceptance of what I could not change. And so I was reminded how resilient I was a year ago in getting through that, which has really been a huge help to me getting through what we're in the midst of right now. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I'd be curious about other people on the call too. Can you give examples of challenging things that have happened in your life and reflect a little bit on how you were able to get through it? We may be able to learn from you in those stories. Anybody care to share?
And you know, we have the chat box, but we'd love to hear you speak personally. So Don, I saw yours came up there.
Somebody's waving. Is that Jim waving? Who's it?
Yeah. Don had something in the chat, so I was going to go to him first.
Oh, yeah.
Don, you have to unmute. There you go. Okay.
Well, just an hour ago, I got a text from a very good friend who you actually know, or Dave does, but his mom was just rushed to the hospital because of a gallbladder attack, and she's in surgery right now. But how scary that is, because she had to be left at the door. No one can see her. No one can call in even. She's in surgery right now. It's bad enough to go to the hospital, but to think you have to go into the hospital
right
during this time, and are you going to get proper treatment, and are you going to catch this virus because of other people there, and all of these kinds of concerns. But I don't know how to react to it other than just sad about it.
So,
I
so
don't know how
Don,
you can be joyful about it.
right. So Don, can you remember a time in your life in the past where you were in a situation where you felt helpless? There was nothing you could do to change it.
Yeah,
That
almost
helped
every
you,
day.
that helped you get through it.
You know, I have also been fighting cancer for 5 years, and every 3 months it gets scary as I go in for another blood test and find out what's going on, and I have to wait for a week to get the results. So that was pretty much a basket case. But I just try not to think about it, I guess. I don't know any other wonderful antidote to that.
Just time going by.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
keep busy. Luckily, my life is incredibly busy, so I don't have any idle time. I wish for 15 minutes I could be bored, but it just never happens.
Yeah.
So I think my way of escaping has always been my whole life, you know, over busy, just staying busy to the point where I don't have to think about things that I don't want to think about. I just keep busy with other things.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
So in your case, being busy is a way that you cope. Don,
That's
it looks like.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what I'm also hearing, Don, is when you're focused on whatever it is you're doing, that's where your focus is. It's not on the other thing, you know, waiting for a phone call, you know. Okay,
Yeah,
great. Great. So Jim, thank you, Don. Jim, I saw you raise your hand before. If you unmute, please, and you can unmute your mic, Jim. We can't hear you. Let's see, maybe I can do that. Use my powers.
Okay, I think
Okay, there you go. Okay, go ahead.
thinking back different times when either I or others I know have survived difficult circumstances, and what was the source of resiliency? I've had such a focus in my life on relationships, person-centered relationships, and it seems to me that it's so important to surround ourselves and become aware of who are the important people in my life that I can turn to, or who are maybe already turning to me. So I would just want to refocus on relationships, I guess, and relationships that are personal and caring and kind and loving.
Yeah, I love that, Jim. Thank you. And you know, I'm hearing there is that really focusing in, being present on what's truly important. Yeah, right. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Other
I
examples?
will mute.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other examples of when in something you have survived that you had something got you through there?
Yeah, for me, it's not, you know, I don't have to go back to the past. It's right now. I mean, this is a big crisis for us, Diane and I, my wife Diane. But at the same time, I'm finding it to be very exhilarating. It's fun in a way. I mean, we've got an opportunity in the role that I have as an owner of a gym with a staff of people and hundreds of members and a fairly, I'm not famous at all, but you know, people in town know who I am and what we're about. You know, for me to step into the open space that this virus is created, because the whole country right now is wondering, you know, what are we going to do? How are we feeling? What's next? How long is this going to last? This is worrisome. What about, you know, my aunt? What about my grandpa? You know, all that kind of stuff's going on. There's a lot more questions floating around out there than answers, but we've at least got something to offer, and we're doing it. And you know, we didn't lay off our staff. We kept them on board, and they're working right now as we speak. They're working with their clients and helping them maintain their journeys and helping them keep their spirits up and their mindset going. and we're looking at ways to develop it. There's opportunity in this, and so I find this to be incredibly exhilarating. It's fun. It's an opportunity to make a real meaningful contribution to a lot of people. There was something else too that just slipped my mind here. Give me a second. Yeah, it's gone. All right, never mind. That's it.
Well, one thing I know about you, Phil, is that you're a very creative and passionate person. And so what you're doing is you're seizing this opportunity to use your creativity and passion to figure out new ways to serve people.
Yeah.
What a wonderful way to cope with.
And what also struck me and listening to you was you love a challenge. And even though this is probably not a challenge you would pick, you're making it. And because of the creativity and finding ways to do the best you can with what you have, that's an excellent example of.
Well, Don mentioned about being busy, losing himself in the busyness. The challenge may be that very thing. It captivates you. It consumes you. It's all encompassing, and you don't think about other things. You're not distracted. You're exhilarated. And there's what Don said. There's a piece of that in what I'm saying too.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. And Paula has her hand raised. And go ahead, Paula.
Yep. I had to come inside because my neighbor started his lawnmower.
Okay. Thank you.
A little adaptation that time.
Okay.
Very good. You are still flexible, Paula, and you can adapt in the moment. How wonderful.
Anyway, well, as I've shared with you guys both that the Appalachian Trail really helped prepare me a lot for this. Hiking 1,900 miles of it, not completing due to, circumstances beyond my control, which this is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What's one of the lessons you learned on your hiking adventures that might help us, or that helped you?
Well, you can have all the ideas in your head about what you want to do, and eat just for a day on hiking, and the trail has its own ideas. The mountain might be a little higher than you think. The rain might be a little harder than you think. You might run into a hailstorm at the top and have to duck for cover. You don't see your family for long periods of time, which actually was the hardest part of my journey, rather than the physical challenges. And, I think that's helped a little bit with this, but, because basically we're pretty lucky in that we have technology, we can face-to-face see people. And that makes a huge difference. Before, you wouldn't be able to do this kind of technology.
Sure.
You just have to be thinking in your head what's going on. And
so what I'm hearing, Paul, and what I know about you personally, that adds to your resilience is your adaptability. With what you're describing, that all right, this is here. What do I do now? Didn't expect this. It's raining harder than I thought, so I'll adapt. That is a huge part of being resilient rather than stuck. And it can be, one of the things, David and I talk a lot about this in our different trainings, is that we can fight that which we have no control. We can just resist it. We can push against it, saying, that's not fair. This shouldn't be happening. That's wrong. And it still is. It doesn't change anything. Yeah. So then we're suffering. We just prolong our own suffering in that way. So when we focus on, all right, so I accept it. I can't change it. What can I do? If there's something we can change it. If I can't, then what can I do? And that's so much more empowering, like Bill was talking about, that you could really feel you're being productive in meeting what is on your plate.
Definitely a time of growth spiritually. you know, emotionally, and it challenges me every day.
Yeah.
You know, I see people are really looking to have some sort of bad person or thing that they can blame for everything, you know, because it's so much easier than facing the fact that, you know, we're all in this together and we have to, you know, just change with the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a cliche that I heard again recently. Maybe some of you know it, the exact words. I don't know if I'll get them right, but the phrase is when you find out that you can't change what's going on around you, all that's left is to change yourself. And I think that you're speaking to that, Paula, that you know, you met some challenges out there and you needed to learn how to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're facing now as well. We need to learn to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I was hearing you say, which I think is so cool, is that when you struggled out there, that struggle made you stronger. And I think there's something to be said or maybe hopeful for in this situation too, that this is a struggle for every human being on the planet. And there's an opportunity for it to make us stronger if we embrace it and focus on what you were saying, Kate. What can I do as opposed to what can't I do?
Right. Yeah.
So thanks to both of you for sharing that.
Yeah, you know, I know this sounds kind of twisted, or you know, one of the when there's a challenge in my life, I like to think like, oh, good, I'm going to grow from this. Great. Like, not good that it happened, but like, okay, I'm going to take this as an opportunity to learn something new, to grow in this way, to be stronger than I've ever been before. And, you know, maybe you know, it's just my means of, I think it's just a default way that I get through things. Rather than, I'm not big into suffering. So I look for the ways of how I'm going to be better as a result.
Yeah, another way I've heard you say that in the past, also, Kate, which was encouraging to me, is I think you've used words like, well, I'm not going to waste this suffering, or I'm not going to waste this pain. I'm going to learn from it so that it counts for something.
Yeah, right.
You know, rather than just suffer through it.
Yeah.
What is it that I can learn from this?
Yes.
That will make at least part of it worthwhile.
Right. So it won't be this black, like, you know, with a cancer diagnosis. So it won't be a black mark on my life. Like, oh, wow, that really catapulted me ahead. Wow. Like that, you know, that's something I get excited about when I think, which feels better than, oh, that was awful. You know, that I went through that. You know, whatever you know, we're so powerful as human beings in how we think. And if we find a way of thinking that makes us feel good, then boy, do that. Do that. You know, rather than we don't have to be stuck in suffering. And particularly when there's nothing we can do to change it.
Yeah, I'd like to facilitate another shift here in the call, and that is, you know, we want to have these calls be a chance for us to learn from each other. So we want people to participate and share their wisdom with the rest of us. And we also, Kate and I, want to be able to share something that might be helpful to you from our experience. And so last week we started this idea of how to maintain joy in our life. And we started talking about an acronym that for us, JOY also equals PAL. There's an acronym there that helps us maintain our joy no matter what is going on around us, even in the midst of suffering and grief and everything else. And the first part of that PAL, the P, refers to something we've already talked about in this call too. It's about staying present. You know, some of you have brought that up, that when I can stay present to what I'm doing, my mind is not drifting to the future to worry about something, and it's not drifting to the past about what I regret or feel guilty about. I'm staying focused right now, right in this present moment, which is the only place that joy is. I can only experience it now. And so if I want to maintain feeling good, I need to maintain being present. And so we talked at length more about that last time. And today we want to talk about the second part of that acronym, the A part, PAL. And for us, the A stands for actually what Kate was alluding to, and some of you have been alluding to also in the call, is acceptance. Acceptance. And again, that doesn't mean that we like everything that's going on in our life. And it doesn't mean that we can't grieve it too. I think there's a real place for grief and sadness and appreciating what we may be losing or have lost. There's a place for that. And at the same time, in order for us to move on from that, we have to reach that place of acceptance. And accepting that this is the way it is. And until I can be there, it's hard for me to take the next step into the future. Wouldn't you say, Kate, or what comments do you have?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no matter what happens, no matter from this point on, you know, with this crisis. I don't know about you. I believe you're probably a lot like me, that you want to be at peace with what is, which feels so much better than resisting and fighting, you know, this invisible thing. And so to have peace, acceptance is required, because, you know, like there's a lot of things we don't have control over. And, you know, this is not just what we're going through now. This is true in any situation in our lives when there's something happening that we don't want. And it's a huge tool. I call it a muscle. And, you know, I believe without question that just like you go to the gym, Phil, you know, and you work your biceps, you know, when you're really consciously practicing acceptance or practicing presence, those muscles get stronger. And then when future things occur in your life and in your lives that are challenges, then those muscles are there. You know, you're like, oh wow, I'm in better shape. Like I'm in better shape for COVID than I was for cancer because I've strengthened my muscle a lot. You know,
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. We teach that in the gym. And I actually give a 1-hour seminar on that very topic: how to build your inner strength. The way you build a muscle and your physical strength and your mental strength is virtually identical. You do it with deliberate practice. You do it, repeatedly, consistently, and your brain grows stronger, just like your muscles do. But you need to exercise. You need to do the workout to make that happen.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. We don't have to be victims. We don't have to be victims of situations, or even victims of our thoughts. You know, we're in charge of those. So.
That said, Kate, if I may, you're talking about acceptance. The governor of Florida closed our gym. We can't open the gym. We cannot allow anybody in. We can't even go in ourselves. We've got a lot of money tied up in this business and a lot of members that, are going to drift away the longer this goes. This is a true crisis. When the order came, and it came, with no warning whatsoever. All of a sudden, boom, close the gym now. And we literally had to run people out of the place and then lock the doors and shut the place down. We did that, but it was surreal. It's like, what just happened? What's happening? And it wasn't like, this is true, we're closing the gym. It's like, what in the world is going on? And we didn't accept anything. We didn't fight it. We complied with the order, but the reality had not sunk in at all.
Right.
And it took a while before that happened.
Yeah, I get it.
It's still happening.
Yeah, and when we're talking about acceptance, it is the emotional response. And in that moment when you were in action to do what you had to do, I bet it was surreal. Like you probably didn't even have time to process it all. And now, that you are at this point, here your doors are closed. That's where the practice of acceptance is going to, I would expect would be helpful.
Yes, and I already see you doing that, Phil. I mean, you're talking about how you're exhilarated now about new opportunities, and that's one expression of the acceptance that you're embracing. And the acceptance, we don't mean to say the acceptance comes right now, like right at the beginning.
No.
It takes a while to get to the acceptance place.
Yeah, there's a lot of processing that needs
Yeah,
to get
right.
to.
It's like the stages of grief, right? The 5 stages of grief. Acceptance is one of those stages, and it takes a while to get there. And yet, all we're saying is that if we want to maintain our joy, we need to keep in mind that at some point we need to get there. We have to get to the acceptance. It doesn't mean we don't do anything to help ourselves. It doesn't mean that we don't still feel sad or anything like that. But it does mean that we have, while we're feeling all that, or after we're feeling all that, we need to accept what is in order to move on. And that's partly what we wanted to share with you today to ponder on. And you may disagree with that also, some of you, but it's just something to stimulate. We wanted to stimulate your thinking about. So that's the P and the A of PAL, presence and acceptance. And next week we'll get to the L and what the L is and how that reflects or enhances one's joy that we want
I
to.
bet you'll all want to tune in.
Yes, I hope so. Before we close, we'd like to hear a little bit from you about what you might take from this call that will encourage you this week. Something that you've learned or were reminded of or were encouraged by. Something you'll remember heading into this week that will help you in your journey of life.
I just heard you tell us all to go to L.
Yes, go to L next week. We'll be there.
Yeah, we'll meet you there.
Yeah. Anything else that was encouraging? Was it worth your time to be a part of this call, and if so, why? You can type it in the chat if you want, or just speak it.
I think just the reminder of acceptance and moving forward, you know, because you can't move forward to accept where you got to go.
Right. Yeah. And Mary, why don't you speak what you wrote, but unmute yourself. You're there you go.
Yeah, sorry, I gotta find the button.
Okay.
Acceptance leads to adaptability.
Yeah. I love that. Because you cannot be creative when you're stuck. You know,
Right.
you cannot adapt if I'm just going to be stuck here and I'm going to complain, and even though I can't do anything about it, but boy, that being able to accept where you are opens up doors for what's next. Thank you. Excellent.
About the adaptability, I'm just curious, how many people were using Zoom last year?
Yeah.
I'm serious. I just started this week.
Yeah.
I've never used Zoom before in my life, and that's adaptation. But
yeah, it is, and it's going to be something I think that's very a helpful tool into the future. David and I used it, but only for the two of us in our meetings, since we're in 2 different states. But doing this, like, there was a learning curve here for us, obviously. Even getting here today. So, yeah, for sure.
Well, come back next week and bring your success stories and your failures too, and we'll just all hang out together and support each other and learn from each other. Next week, same time.
And the topic, just to
yes,
help get them back.
Yes.
The topic is how to stay cool when things heat up. Okay. Sound good?
And they will get hotter.
I'm afraid so.
Yeah.
I am afraid so.
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
All right. Thanks.
Well, thanks
everybody.
Thanks to everyone, and we'll see you next week. And spread the word if you want. If you find somebody that you think might enjoy this time, let them know. Everyone is welcome.
And if anyone would like the video of this, please email me at triumph, TRIUMPH, at epix.net, and I'll send you the link to the video. And I hope it worked. Looks like it did. Okay.
This is the Zoom clap.
Great.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, God bless you all. Thanks for joining us so that we're not alone.
Yes. All right. Bye, everybody. Stay safe and healthy.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.